You're listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.
All right.
Louie Guzman.
Yes.
What's going on, brother?
How are you doing, Gabriel?
I'm super excited to have you back.
Man.
The first time we did this was at the food bank.
Yes.
And Monica was there, and I had a great time. I learned a lot about the food bank.
Yeah, I remember that.
What you guys have going on, and I learned a lot. There's a lot of good people out there doing some good work.
Amazing people.
Now, you've moved on. You're doing something else now.
Yeah, so I'm with the Kronkowski Charitable Foundation. So
Say that slower.
Kronkowski Charitable Foundation.
Okay.
And so they're a major family trust that is managed and owned by Bank of America.
Okay.
And so we provide resources and funding in 4 counties of our interest. So that would be Bandera, Bexar County, Kendall County, and Comal County.
Now, when you say counties, is it the actual county or it's nonprofits within those counties?
Oh, so the nonprofits within that region.
Okay.
So those are the 4 counties that we will cover, and any nonprofits that are in that territory in those counties we support.
Okay. So how many, I guess, right now, currently, how many guys are you guys helping support?
Well, that's probably, it ranges, but right now I could tell you I have 85 in my portfolio.
Oh, wow.
And my colleague has about another 85. And so,
Wow.
and those are just the ones that, and there's a ton more nonprofits that are out there.
Yeah.
But those are just the ones. So we have 3 focus areas of giving, and that's human services, which includes children, seniors, those with disabilities, and then we have the arts, and then we have other, which is environmental and humane for animals. So
Okay.
animal cruelty and spading, neutering, and that kind of thing.
Okay, that's awesome. And how long has this organization been going?
I want to say we just went past our 20 years, 25 years, maybe 30.
Wow, that's a long time.
I guess I should know that. Hopefully they're not watching. Yeah, but they just did a book. In fact, this year they released a book about the foundation to talk about Albert and Bessie May, the founders.
Okay.
And so they resided in those counties that we support. And so they left a very well endowment, and it turned into a family trust that now supports those.
So they're originally from the area then?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So they lived in Kendall, they lived in Bandera. I believe I think they retired in, Bexar County, Kendall County, and Comal. They resided in, and then had some property in Bandera.
Okay.
And so that was when they wrote the trust. This is our focus area that we want to support.
So how long ago were they I guess, with us?
I believe within the last 10 years, I think the last
really?
member had passed away.
Oh, wow.
And so they were very well known in the community, like a huge passion to just, they're what's the word I'm looking for? They're very humble. Yeah. So we don't put, we're not flashy. We don't go and put our name everywhere. Like it was we take care of the people, and that's what we're here for. We don't need to be, honored in all these awards and all this stuff. Get the job done and get the mission done. And so that's how they support it. So they were fantastic in the way that they support the community.
That's awesome. I've known of some, I guess just in the industry, we did a lot of work for in the, I guess, engineering industry, construction side. We did a lot of work with YMCA and I guess Harvey in the gym.
Oh, yes, Harvey, yes.
So I knew about him, but I didn't know that something like this existed.
Oh, yeah.
You guys cover a lot of folks.
There's quite a bit of foundations in the area, and there's more that will, as legacy families with deep pass on, and that will also turn into. So there's a ton of foundations within the community itself, but everybody has their focus areas. Harvey loves helping children and being very supportive of that, and so that's one of his strong suits. And so he's making sure that a child goes without nothing, and so which is incredible to have that. One, the ability to do it, and 2, to put your money where your mouth is and really support.
He's built some beautiful facilities.
Oh, yeah.
We've only done a couple of them, and I tell you what, they're really nice, and not even just. They're for the children, but at the same time, they lift the community.
Correct.
They offer teaching people how to cook, nutrition, keeping people active, having something for the community. I think one of them even had like a really small outdoor movie theater type thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome. So what are you finding that people are in need of right now? Because I know there's the baby formula deal,
right? But
what else is going on? Because it seems like in the past several years, there's been like a bombardment of just crises.
Correct.
So what's really in short supply for folks right now?
I would say support. So right now, support. We know the baby food formula is an issue. as gas prices go up, families are suffering from that. You know, some folks are going to have to quit working because they can't afford to go to work, or find jobs that will be flexible at home. So there's, you know, there was the big mass exodus and everybody resigned.
Yeah.
You know, the big mass resignation, and so we're finding all our nonprofits that we support are hard struck to find donors and volunteers. So getting folks to make donations into any little bit helps. And so it goes a long, long way. And just getting together and volunteering, you know, what do you need? Whether it's admin, you know, not everybody has the ability like the food bank to just rush people in and pack boxes and do all that stuff.
It's real impressive what the food bank puts together.
They're an incredible machine for volunteers, and even they're struggling. You see Eric on the news every once in a while, like, hey, we need more volunteers. So right now, it's they need support. So what I always tell people, since I even started with the food bank and I was doing presentations for them for the United Way, I would just tell the mass audiences, what is your passion? We all work hard for our money. If you're doing investment in something, you want a sure thing. So find where your passion lies, and then make a donation to them, or give your time. Everybody can use, any nonprofit out there could use people walking in the door. How can I help? You know, I don't want to go into too many individual ones because then they're like, well, you didn't name us, and you because of all my 84. But if they want to find something to do, they can find the right organization, and they can just reach out to me on social media or tap into you. Hey, you know, what's going on? But there's a lot of need, because as we go through this crisis and the recession, and you know, that's affecting people's pocketbooks, which affects the nonprofits as well, because they live and breathe on individual donations. You know, folks think corporations give, you know, all this money, and they do, but they can only do so much. It takes a community together to continue to uplift all our nonprofits. So it takes them. You know, and growing up as a kid in here in San Antonio as a teenager, you know, my family used a lot of services that are still out there. So I feel like I've come full circle, and we could touch deeper later on if you like, but I've come full circle from being a child dependent upon the church for food, you know, going to Goodwill and thrift stores to get clothing just to have new clothes for school, getting out, having, you know, battling depression as a teenager, figuring out what my life is about, what am I doing, and then running away to the military to save my life, and now to come back, retire, work for the food bank, you know, and then now I work for Soldiers Angels to touch base with my military side, back to the food bank, and now to be with this organization. I think it's a God wink to say, now your life has come full circle. Do what I need you to do here, which is to help all these other nonprofits, help them with their grants and ensure and advocate for their funding from our board that governs it. So for me, it's full circle. I'm meant to be here. And so I always remember my mom saying, you're always going to be meant for more. So don't ever feel happy where you're at. You got to keep sinking, because there's that next level for you. And for years, my friends were like, well, how long are you going to be in the nonprofit like you? How long are you going to be at the food bank? I was like, well, eventually I want to get to the other side of the table. I enjoy being in fundraising, asking for money, and making relationships and building relationships. But now I can leverage those relationships to help other nonprofits and still have the backing of the foundation that I support and work for to get these organizations the funding they need.
That's awesome. You know, what's interesting is, and, you know, me and Nina have talked about it before, because she's a special needs teacher.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd imagine there's a lot of talented people out there that don't realize that they're a resource that could be used, you know? So is something like that just a matter of somebody walking in and going, hey, you know, I'm a special needs teacher, or hey, I have you know, I teach art, or I'm a gardener, or I know how to do this, that, or the other. Like, how does somebody who has a special talent connect with an organization that may need somebody like that?
Yeah, it just walking in the door. You know, there's every organization could use something. You know, even as simple as a painter. You know, you paint a house, you have extra left over. If the household doesn't want it, they give it to you. What happens to it? It just probably gets stuck in a shelf somewhere. If you have enough, go to a nonprofit and says, hey, can we come in and paint one of your rooms? You know, a lot of these nonprofits are in older buildings. You know, there's not a lot of funding. They're they're great stewards of the money, so it stays involved in the mission.
Yeah.
So sometimes some things will get left behind, and that wall, you know, it's a little beat up, but it's there. We need it.
Yeah.
But to come in and just lend your talents to anybody, there's ways to get involved. You can go on websites and look up stuff, and everybody has a talent and a skill that will be valuable for others. Even writing. I don't know if people know, but there's a nonprofit that helps people develop their writing skills and to write books for children to express themselves. So everybody has a talent, teaching, writers, painters, you name it. Even simple as you like to be outside and mow the grass. I can tell you a lot of nonprofits don't have a budget to have maintenance and lawn care. Go and say, hey, I'm going to come and mow your grass. We were lucky in New Braunfels to have people come and do that for us.
Yeah.
They would drive by and say, hey, we see you haven't mowed your grass in a bit. We'll come out there. It's embarrassing for us because we want a good, what do you call it?
You want to have that curb appeal.
Curb appeal. There you go. Exactly. And so anybody can, if you have time, what can you do? And then go find who you can do it with.
That's interesting because, when you think about, not to constantly go back to the food bank because that's where I know you're from.
Most of my time, yeah.
But, it's funny because when you think about the food bank, you don't think about those things. You don't think about a wall that needs painted or grass that needs cut or, hey, I notice your downspout is leaking or,
right.
The parking lot needs restriping. That's not something that you typically think about. You go, well, I don't have anything to donate food-wise, so I don't have anything to provide to you, which when you say it, it's like, oh, there's plenty you could do.
There is, yeah. In kind is a huge help to any nonprofit. In New Braunfels Food Bank, we would have a guy. He was a seasonal person that would come in and out of the city, and he would come into our windows when he was in town.
Oh, wow.
I was like, we would never think about that.
Yeah.
We're not going to pay a window washer to come in and do the windows. He would come in, and all he says, can I get a hat? I will give you a hat with the logo on it so you can wear it around the city, and you're doing my windows. And then the gift back for the nonprofit is somebody says, oh, your windows look amazing. Who did that? Here's his card. Mm-hmm. So now you might generate business for that individual that has given his time, skill, and talent to give you something. That's the give back, is the relationship building. So that's one of the greatest things that I think I've learned in my world in development at the food bank. I've done it in my whole life, but I like building relationships. But then it's just not, I need money from you. Okay, you did this for me. This person does this. I know you could use this, so I'm going to connect you to.
Yeah.
And whatever unfolds. But just connecting people and having that mindset to always be quick on the draw. I know somebody who can help you in what you're trying to do. And then I love to see new nonprofits pop up. Now, there's a lot of overlapping services. In any major city, it's going to happen. Everybody has a desire and dream to help kids, whether it's, running, writing, food banks. Like there's this new San Antonio Food Bank, and then there's Daily Bread Ministries. So there's people all in the same space, even in the little homegrown church pantries that are there. Everybody wants to do the same thing. But if they will learn to collaborate, and it would be a better place because everybody's fighting for the same dollars.
Sure.
When it's all the same mission. And so it's spreading that out. But there's a book, a billion donate. I can't even, I'm going to mess it up.
Let's say a million billion.
A billion.
Nobody listening to this knows math.
But if somebody's giving away $1 million, if you spread it out into $5,000 increments to nonprofits, you're helping.
Yeah.
But if you can make an impactful gift to a nonprofit and just one large sum and said, here, now go move the needle, that is impactful.
Yeah.
And so spreading these, the smaller gifts out, it's great because that keeps them going. But to have the ability to say, we're going to help you move the needle. And so, my boss in one of the meetings, it really struck a chord. Where do you want to go? Where do you see yourself going? What does it take to get you there? And then how do we help you?
Yeah.
That is impactful to see the faces like, are you serious? Like, yes. And to be a part of that, and a foundation that can do that, it's humbling. It really is. Because I go home every day and I miss the food bank and I miss the camaraderie with the staff. But to say, I've helped people today that don't even know me. So my legacy, even though I'm unnamed, my personal legacy where I can go home and rest and say, if I took my last breath, I know hundreds, if not thousands of people have been better because of the work I did. And I can go to peace with that every night.
And is that, I guess that's part of your motivation, I was thinking about this before we got together today. Cause I get lazy, man. I get real lazy. And when I think about it and I see what you post online, I see the things that you're doing and other people like you. And I'm kind of like, that's a lot of energy. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort. And everybody's got times where they have doubt or they get a little down or they feel like maybe they're not making an impact as well as they feel they could.
Right.
And it's like that you've got to have that inner passion, to have that motivation because, you almost always have to be on. you know?
Correct.
Because you can't go work at a nonprofit and show up blue and gloomy, and
Exactly.
because you're starting to bring down the atmosphere there, you know. And man, when you show up, you're on fire all the time, Louis.
I feel I have to be. And there's days, and don't get me wrong, you know, there's days that I you know, when you talk about mental health, it's everybody's affected somehow. And I have my moments where I get down, I get sad, because I live the life that I want, but am I missing something else?
Yeah.
There's a saying that when you're of service to others is when you're in your greatest moment. And that's what I feel when I'm out there talking to people, seeing other people at work, highlighting them on my social media. Sometimes I get likes, sometimes it gets nothing. It's like, well, why didn't they like this? This is just as important as everything else I've done. You know, I take a picture of my truck and I get 110 likes.
Well, you got a roll of nice truck, Louis.
And I take great pictures of them.
Yeah, you do.
But when I'm highlighting an organization that could use support, it just seems to fall, and that's a little disappointing. And you know, but it's there. But that's my thing, is always being on. And I do go through my moments. You know, you just talked about you can't go to work sad or gloomy and let things affect you. We all battle our own stuff. And I can tell you, in 2014, I had a heartbreak, and then I had a potential cancer scare. And so it devastated me. And I remember coming to work, my eyes were heavy, like I just wanted to bawl. You know, it's one thing to go through a heartbreak because you got broken up with, but it's another thing to also have a death scare.
Sure.
When you're told, hey, you have cancer, and we got to do a biopsy, and we got to go through all this stuff. And so it was crazy. So I remember going to work sad, depressed. And one of my bosses, her name was Genevieve, a friend of Monica.
Okay.
And so she brought me in, and I just remember just feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. And she looks at me and she goes, I think we're going to have to let you go. We can't have you here like this. Like your team doesn't want to be around you. And to hear that, because I love the team. I built my team. Yeah. I was able to hire, you know, being in the military, you don't get to hire who you want.
Yeah.
you get told, hey, they're showing up and they're arriving tomorrow, and this is who works for you now. So when you get to build your own team, and these are like-minded individuals that care about the mission, and they follow you, to be told that your team doesn't even want to be around you, that the girl that sits next to you doesn't even want to sit there because she don't know if you're going to fall apart, or you're going to get angry, like your emotions all over the place. And that was my wake-up call. That was really, I think that was the last time I had a moment like that. And that was 8 years ago. But she told me, and she kept talking to me, and I just wanted to just scream at her and just say, you have no idea the depth of what I'm facing. And finally, I think I just checked out. She could see it. I checked out at her in my face. And she goes, see, you're not even listening. You already checked out. And I said, if you would just shut up for one moment and just let me say this. And I just poured my heart on the table. And this is the first time that I think me and her bonded. We always laughed and carried on, but there was always this distance between us. When she saw that I'm fighting for my health, fighting through this heartbreak, and fighting because I love the mission of the food bank. You know, growing up as a kid, we struggled. Beans and rice was a staple. You know, it was only on payday that we would get hamburgers from McDonald's, or Whataburger was like the big treat. And, you know, when Taco Bell would have a special, like we would run that. And so those moments were fleeting. And so I know what it means to do the work that I did with the food bank. And so for her to tell me that, and finally I poured my heart out, and things got better.
Yeah.
Because then I knew my team now understands where I'm coming from. And then every day is a different day. Every day gets a little bit better. The heartbreak's a little less intense, you know, but I just pushed through it. So we all have our moments, but you're right, a nonprofit cannot have, I don't want to say toxic, but sometimes there is, but somebody that just comes in and doesn't buy in the mission. If you're there for work, everybody needs a job.
Yeah.
But the nonprofits need somebody that is mission driven. At the food bank, you know, they would always say, and I hate going back to them, but we had our slogan is fighting hunger, feeding hope. So they would call us hunger fighters. Mm-hmm. Well, there was food bankers was also another term we used. So we had a gentleman, I love this guy. He was one of my drivers in New Braunfels. He had passed away. And so Wenzel, he was talking to me. He goes, you know, I don't understand these guys. They don't want to give their extra time. You know, when we had to come in on Saturdays, they're complaining. And I just said, there's two types of people that work at the food bank. And he goes, no, we all work at the food bank. I said, well, there's two types of individuals. There's food bankers, and those are the people you need. They keep the daily operations going, but they clock in, they clock out, they have families, they have other things, and we understand that. And then they have people like you and me, Keith. You and I will give up everything. You have a family to go home to. I have friends, I have my dog, I have things that I want to do. But I realized if I'm not here, who's going to be here?
Yeah.
So we're hunger fighters because we're fighting every day to make sure this mission continues on. And then we need those individuals. So it's not less of them. They have a life. At first, I'll be honest, I used to think, well, you're just one of them.
Yeah.
But I get it. I can't judge your life based upon your choices to have a family. I choose not to. So I made my choices to be in this situation, to do more. You're giving everything you can in that window that you have. And so it's just two different people, but everybody needs mission-driven people.
Yeah.
And so what's great to see is folks leaving corporate America to join a nonprofit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's folks that are leaving because they're tired of the daily grind. And to be able to join a nonprofit, especially if it's one that you believe in, that touches you. So if you have children that are, IDD, intellectual disabilities, if you have folks that are in that space, or if you had autistic children, or, whatever, seniors, if your mom battled something, go work for one of those, especially if it pays enough to keep the, you know what I mean? But it's good to see people saying, I want to change and I want to do something different.
Well, what's interesting is I wonder if some of that came from just the past few years we've had. I mean, people being stuck and a lot of, for example, like my job, we have a very small department. So at one point the rules had changed, and
right.
If you had a small department, you could go back and be in the same office. So it didn't really change for us a whole lot, but for a lot of people it did, and it turned into something where it was kind of like you're stuck at home, you're not going out, you're not doing the things you used to. And I feel like a lot of that made people just reevaluate what they do.
Right.
And because it did for me, it made me think about things, At the same time, it's kind of like, well, I've got to pay bills and I can't really just, cut ties here or whatever.
Right.
But, I think it made people want to look for something more fulfilling.
Right.
I know that happens for me all the time where, I've been doing what I do since 2001, and it's literally job in, job out. You're pushing paper. I tell everybody we're pushing paper, man. There's been a few times where I'll go volunteer at different places, and I love it. And sometimes I sit there and I'll go to their website and it's like, what kind of jobs do they have? And then it's like, oh man, I can't. I can take a pay cut,
right.
But there's certain levels to that, right? But it's like I think people had some time to reflect. And what was interesting is even now, we're tightening our belts. We're finding ourselves with less money than we used to have.
Right.
But the want to help other people is still there.
Right.
And so, like you said, finding ways to do that, whether it's volunteering, of course, there's always the monetary side of it that's needed. But there's still a means to be able to help. Because I don't think that ever goes away. I think when I grew up in a small town, small community. We didn't have much, but the awesome thing about it was nobody else did.
Right. You were like around your people. You're around.
We're all the same way.
Yeah.
So it's funny because my dad, as he got older, he became the town good guy.
Right.
And man, I was spoiled brat my whole life, and not monetarily or through things. I just didn't. Why?
Right.
I was the white kid. Why do I got to do that? Why do I got to go over? And my dad's explanation was always because I told you to.
Yeah.
But man, we would go help people do things at their house. We'd mow yards.
Exactly.
We'd do all kinds of stuff like that. And as a kid, I didn't realize it. As I got older, it made a lot more sense.
Exactly.
And I always tell people the story about us cleaning deer. I think I've told you before too, where there was a game warden. His name was Mitchell Pavlik. He'd call Dad and he'd be like, "Hey, I've got like 8 deer over here. You could have them. Just come clean them."
Wow.
And so Dad would wake us up. It'd be a school night, and I hated school. I didn't care about school. And but it was a school night, and I can't go, Dad.
Yeah.
I've got school tomorrow, and I don't care. Get in the truck. We're going. Me and my brother Vidal would go with him, and it'd be freezing outside. He had a cooler. I mean, he had his little bar, his little shed was refrigerated with the meat.
Right.
And we would debone meat for hours, man.
Wow.
And I would come. I don't know how my dad didn't just punch me in the neck, but it was funny because why are we doing this, Dad? We have too much deer at the house already.
Right.
Blah blah. And Dad's thing was, just shut up and do it. And so we'd do it, and it wasn't until like years later, because I never took the time to understand why we were doing things. And in my defense, my dad never bothered telling us why either. But later on, I realized he would go and give this meat to people
in the community. Oh,
and,
my
and
goodness.
that way they had food. He grew up with them. He knew who they were, and that was something that he did and didn't tell anybody. You know, and as I got older, I learned to appreciate that side of it. And now that I'm even older, like, I feel the need for that stuff.
Right.
And maybe it's something because of him just being an example, that the example he set, maybe it's in the blood, I don't know.
Yeah.
But after a while, it's you want to give back to those things, you know. And some of the things, I've volunteered at Morgan's Wonderland before.
Oh, yeah.
Kinetic Kids.
Oh, I love them. They're under my portfolio. I love that. Yes.
I might need a hook up with them because I've been wanting to get them on the podcast, but...
I will definitely get that happen.
Well, I tell you about some of my favorite stuff was with the Kinetic Kid stuff was I volunteered for the swimming.
Oh yeah,
that was always fun. You know, I'm a fat guy. I'm not trying to run around. I'm trying to be in the pool, right? And there was a Downs girl, and Nina, special needs teacher.
Yeah.
She always tells me I love my Downs kids. She's like, they're so ornery, they're so wild.
Yeah.
They don't want to listen. And so I remember we had a Downs girl. She would get out of the pool and take off running. And the funniest thing was a couple of times when I had to chase her, and she got a little farther when I chased her than if somebody else did. But, you know, it's so... One thing that I learned, we'll move around here a little bit, but one of the things with the special needs kids that I learned was going to Nina's graduations. And, you know, growing up in a small town, you had your middle class people, but I would say back then there was probably a larger financial gap between people. Like, you had people that had money, and then everybody else was struggling, you know. And so one thing that I always found super interesting was, and maybe it was just me being naive too, was going to their graduations, because she used to work at the Riddick Center, and they have like post-high.
Yeah.
And you'd go there, and special needs doesn't care. You know, You've got extremely poor people. You have both parents or doctors, and you've got everything in between. And they're all here. They're all celebrating their kids graduating. And it just runs the gambit, man, of all types of families, you know. And that was something that kind of stuck out to me. So working with special needs kids, whether it was at Morgan's or whether it was at Kinetic Kids, it was always so much fun. And it was so awesome to see. I think there's what is it, Eva's Heroes?
Yes.
Funny story. We're just talking. So.
I love it.
Funny story. We were, Nina had a student that she got along with real well, the mom real well. And every now and then she'd go to her house and help with stuff. Like if the mom would, she hasn't been doing her schoolwork. I need you to come by the house. So she'd go in, and Nina's cold-blooded and heartless at times. So the kids we're always kind of intimidated by her, and she has a way about her. But anyway, one day I said, hey, why don't we pick up, I forget the girl's name, why don't we pick her up and let's take her to a movie? Yeah. And so I think I took the day off. It was during the summertime. It was 2 o'clock at some place on the west side. It was a cartoon. And I remember there was 3 groups of people. There was us and 2 others. And the little girl I say little girl, but she was probably, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13 or something. She loved to repeat things, right? So when the character would say something, she would repeat it really loud. And we're sitting there. It's probably 10 or 15 minutes into the cartoon. This person that works there comes up and says, hey, y'all are going to have to leave. And so me and Nina, we butt heads, man.
Right.
Like, we get along, but we fight a lot. But when we have a common enemy, oh, man, we're amazing. And so they come in, they're like, hey, you guys are going to have to leave. And we're like, well, what for? They said, well, she's being too loud. And somebody complained. And I said, well, hang on. I said, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's a cartoon, and there's only 3 groups of people in here. I'm like, what's the big deal if she talks to the cartoon? Yeah. Well, we're going to have to ask you to leave. And ultimately, we ended up having to leave. Yeah. And I remember thinking, we were livid. I think it was Regal. We wrote Regal. I think we got like 6 free tickets and some snacks or something, and we gave to the mom and the daughter. You know, but at the same time, it's like, okay, you're giving us something for our inconvenience. Right. When can she use it?
Yeah, because she's always going to be.
She's always going to be that way. And then shortly after that, I guess Eva's Heroes came out. Eva Longoria has that organization, and they take kids to the movies, and that was something that really floored me, you know, to see somebody complain about a special needs child talking to a cartoon at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday.
They should be somewhere too, right?
Yes. And so, there's all these avenues that I guess people can donate to, and they just need to see what they're passionate about,
Right.
And just for us, I think it's turned into being to special needs kids
Yeah.
through Nina. It's funniest thing is Nina, I love her to death. She's a little bit of a knucklehead. And we were even talking about it, I think today or yesterday. And I was like, who would have thought you'd have been a special needs teacher for the past 16 years? And she says, I didn't. She said, I didn't want to be a teacher. I had no clue about special needs kids. I think she worked at USAA, and she got laid off, whatever, regardless of what she says. And so it was kind of one of those things where it's like, I think the state of Texas had this program where they're like, hey, come be a teacher. We need teachers.
Right.
And it was like English is a second language. I think ALE, whatever that stands for. She's told me before 100 times. And then I think like math and science.
Sorry.
And so eventually she went and did the special needs avenue, and she ended up at the Reddick Center.
Wow.
And man, I tell you what, that was some of the most fun because they were post-high school kids. So they were 18 to 22. And they always had fall and winter dances.
Wow.
And I would love to go to that stuff, man. I'd go to it because I told Nina, I said, it's basically like a high school dance.
Right.
You have your cliques. You have your kids that are trying to make out under the bleachers. You got everybody kind of grouping up. I said, the only difference is there aren't any wallflowers. I said, everybody's dancing. And when Play the Funky Music White Boy comes on and Rick James and Brick House,
Yes.
it goes wild, man.
Wow, that is incredible.
So that was always fun, But for you, what is something that kind of drew you into that? I mean, I know you talked about needing services when you were younger, but at the same, we had the government cheese and the government
same
pork,
here.
man.
Yeah, exactly.
But is that what kind of drew you to that, or?
I would say, looking back, I could say yes. Maybe it was something that was built into me. Because like you said, government cheese. Every Saturday, my mom would go to St. Monica's Catholic Church in Converse, go in the line, get the cheese box, come back. And it was like Christmas because you didn't know what was in the box.
Yeah. Did you get the pork?
We got the pork can, we got the cheese, we got all that. So you never knew what you were going to get. So it was always like, you knew the cheese was coming, but everything else.
Yeah.
And then, we never struggled for much, but we got by. And if the car went down, they were freaking out. How do we get the car fixed? We got to get to work. We got to get the kids to appointments. So we never had the luxury of things. The house. It's
That was
still
here in San Antonio, right?
in Converse. Yeah, in Converse.
Because you're from California originally?
Correct, Los Angeles. From Los Angeles, and we moved here. My stepdad lived in Bakersfield, and we moved here when my grandfather was getting ill.
Okay.
And we went back and forth for a while, and then finally resided here. So the house I believe, is still standing on Topperwine. So if you know where there's Dante's Restaurant on Topperwine, if you leave Dante's and take a left to go up Topperwine, there is three houses, a couple of lots, and then there's an old house with a brick red fence and a basketball court. That's where I grew up.
Okay.
And that was a 2-bedroom house, and we made it into a 4-bedroom house because my dad just added on.
Oh, wow.
Took the initiative and built foundation and put walls up. I mean, you could feel the wind coming through on cold days, and that's where a lot of the experiences when I talked about Halloween, when we did the special for that.
That's my dad's house too, man. When
Really?
the wind blows, you can hear it. You can hear it. One screwy thing, not to interrupt you, but one thing when you talk about the wintertime and the wind coming through is every year I like to make this little deer jerky thing that Dad used to make. And it's a nostalgia thing. I like the smell. It's a lot of soy sauce and ground pepper, basically. And but growing up, Dad would make it in the wintertime because that's how he heated the house.
Yeah.
So we were making a meal or making jerky and at the same time heating the house.
Yeah, and in the wintertime, there was a lot of baking to keep the house warm.
Yeah.
Instead of, and we had gas heaters. We didn't have central air until years down the line. We had water cooler, water coolers with the water and the straw to blow through the house. And that would get cold. I wouldn't think it would today, but I remember being frozen out of my room because of that. But my mom would always, like you talked about, go helping your neighbors. There was a lady called Eleanor who was a senior that lived in our community. We would go rake her yard. She would give my mom $5 and she would just break us off 50 cents each, and it was a pattern. My mom always stopped for everybody on the corner. Anybody asked for money, if it was her last $5, it went to that person. Yeah. And we said, "Oh, Mom, they're hustling you. You don't give them the money. Just keep driving." She goes, "No, because God," and this is what I live by today. Sometimes to a fault, and I've been in situations where my givingness is misinterpreted. But to me, if somebody comes to me with a problem, and I feel God has put them in front of me because I have the ability to help. And so I act on that. If it's money, if it's a ride, if it's clothing, Monica could probably tell you, but there's times where within my first three months at the food bank, this guy came in for services, and he was brought downstairs into the warehouse where I was working. And one of our client services folks says, "Hey, Louie, do we have any donated coats? Because, this guy needs a coat." And a coat front had blown in, and he was in a wheelchair, kind of a bigger guy. And I was like, "No, we don't have anything in here." And as she's driving away,
call me next time, Louie. I got a lot of fat guy coats.
And so I remember the guy looking back, and as she was willing him away, and I had on this nice, I just bought it. I couldn't find it again after that, but it was just nice pullover, very thick cherry cloth, nice ribbon on the end. It was incredible. And I just took it off and I gave it to him. And she grabbed it and says, no, you can't. And I says, "No, I can. Nobody will ever tell me I can't do something, especially when it's giving." Mm-hmm. I said, "Because you're preventing my blessing. If I can bless somebody, you're permitting my blessing if you return it back to me." So I gave it to the guy. I go to lunch with another guy. So we're at lunch, and our phones are blowing up from all these emails that are popping in. And I looked. She went, and that young lady had went to HR and said, "This new guy, Louie, just gave the coat off his back to a guy that needed it because he needed it."
Yeah.
And so HR had sent that story out, and everybody's, "Oh, we're glad to have you on the team." Like it just went around and around, and I became known as that guy. And I don't do it because I want to continue to be that guy. I do it because that's who I am, not to be identified. But it all goes back to my mom. I feel like I have my mom's heart and soul built in here. The rest of me was designed by the military. Everything else, the lethalness and the hatefulness and all that is military born. But I truly believe that her heart, when she passed away, I feel that her heart and spirit moved into me, and this is where I live and breathe now. And so I would be at work, and there was a young guy that would come in, and it was almost for the 3 years in a row, he had size 14 feet.
Oh, wow.
And he would come in to get services to get renewed for his stuff. And he would walk in with socks, triple layered on, because his shoes would always blow out or they get ripped off. And so the first time I seen him, I said, "Where are you going?" He says, "I'm going upstairs." I said, "Don't leave until you see me again." I raced down from the food bank on General McMullen. There was a Ross. I would go buy a pair of 14 size tennis shoes and bring them back for him.
Wow.
And said, "Don't put them on until you go wash and you get new socks." And sometimes I bought him new socks, but it's because somebody needed to do it. And the food bank, and it was always, I don't want to say it was looked down upon, but you can't keep coming out of pocket because, you know what I mean? And so some people lived in that, like, I don't have the ability, or I don't want to get involved like that. I can't do nothing but that.
Yeah.
And so that has been, I've been on the far side of town sometimes where somebody was calling the food bank to get help, and they're like, "I'm stuck over here. Somebody had given me your number that knows you." So I drove all the way out to Floresville to find a woman at a gas station that she couldn't even give me directions to. Somehow, miraculously, I found her, put enough gas just to get her into the city, and then got her food so she could go home with her kids, because she got turned around and ran out of gas, and then didn't even make it to the food bank to get her food. And that's what I did. And then years later, so I tell these things, and people are like, "Oh, is that really?" Years later, it wasn't last year that Eric was telling that story. Yeah, this woman happened to come up to me and said, "Batman from the food bank," because I used to have a white Tundra back in that day, and it had a Batman logo on the back. This young lady had now moved on and her situation got better. When she got in front of Eric, she says, "One of your guys came, found me, put gas in my car, drove me to the nearest HEB on the south side of town, bought me groceries for my kids, even had me on the phone asking the children what kind of cereal they wanted to make sure they got what they wanted." Because I remember that to this day. And she was, the only thing I can remember is he had a Batman logo on the back of his truck. And he only knows one guy that did that worked there. Yeah. So I know those are the moments that God has put me here for, that my mom would be proud of me. So everything I do is in memory of her. Like, I really wish, sometimes I get emotional as I'm driving home after a great day and look at what I've accomplished, and to say, would she be proud? And I know she would. But I would love her here for those moments. When I retired, she wasn't here for my retirement. We lost her to cancer years ago. And so I just would love to see the look on her face, and to see her look down and say, "I'm proud of what you've done." Yeah. And so, but my life is built in that mode. And so everybody I come in contact, all the nonprofits, I love them all. And they're all different, from Kinetic Kids to, children foster care, to the arts and the Tobin. Even though, that's not human services, but it's still giving back to the community. Sure. Something.
Art is important, man.
Yeah.
It's important to a community. It's important to a society. I mean, you've got to have it. You've got to have it. So
it builds the community that gives them something to fight for. It's like, when you talked about that young lady, screaming at the cartoon. I don't know if you knew, but the Tobin Center offers shows where it's just for kids like that, so they can have an outburst and they can just enjoy everything. And so when they were telling me that, like, my heart was breaking. I was like, this is why I'm in this space. Yeah. Everybody has an incredible mission, and sometimes it drives me crazy because how can I love them all? But I have some that I grow fond with because I build relationships with them. And there's others that I'm maybe not so connected because I don't have enough time with them yet, but I believe in their mission enough that I had to fight for every dollar that we were able to give them and advocate for them. So
do you just block out? Because, when I think about it, and I think about, as lazy as I can be, I think about, people spreading themselves too thin, and I've advised people at times where it's like, hey, you need to focus on something because you're not giving enough to everything.
Right.
But in your case, where that's your new job is to spread yourself thin.
Right.
How do you go about? Even though, like you said, you maybe spend more time with some and less with others, but how do you go about making sure that you are connecting with 85 different organizations,
right.
and how do you go about staying focused? Because I mean, you're a human being,
right?
You're gonna have frustrations, you're gonna have bad days, but like we talked about earlier, you can't, especially in the industry you're in, helping people that are in need of help. I hate to be negative, but you almost have to take your BS
right.
and put it away for a little while, because I can't bring that with me to
right.
work. These people don't want to know. They need help. They don't want to know about my BS. they want me to perform.
Exactly.
How do you go about to stay? I don't know if it's just mentally focused. I know you've been working out.
Yeah,
because
I've
been watching you trimming down, Louie. You're looking great.
Thank you. That's my trainer. I'm gonna plug him, Joseph at Golds.
Joseph at Golds,
Callahan. He's an incredible trainer. The work doesn't want me. My scope is wide on the number of nonprofits. My boss has been incredible. She's like, take time for you. Like, what are you doing for yourself? And she was like, I need you to take a moment in the day and just log off the computer and just, even if it's go for a walk around the building. She is adamant that I take care of myself. But for years in the military, 22 years in the military, 11 with the food bank and one with, close to 11 with the food bank and then one with Soldiers Angels.
How old are you, Louie?
I'm 52.
Shit, you look 32.
Thank you. Well, that's why I shaved before I came. It was all white. And so, but for years, I've always been in the mode of taking care of everybody else. As a leader, you need to take care of the troops before you take care of yourself. They go eat, then you can eat. They go home first. In some of my greatest moments with the food bank have been the holidays. It's when it's magical for me, because that is when I battle my own inner self, my darkness, that I can go down the hole really fast and I can't pull out in time for Christmas. But Christmas and from October, I'm not a Halloween guy, but I like October because it starts to get cold.
Yeah.
And I thrive. The cold, I love the cold. And then you get into Thanksgiving where people are giving and people are starting to think about other people besides themselves. Then you get into Christmas where it's a different type of giving. It's more, let me show you how I can spend money on you and stuff. But it's caring. It's still people sharing and caring. And so that lights my fire. And so I would burn myself out. And I would, in my years with the food bank, the day after Christmas, when we would close on Christmas Eve, I would crash hard, not even get out of bed for a day. Like Christmas, I was having to drag myself up to go to Christmas dinner at somebody else's house. But that was my moment, because if I don't, it's easy to get into that lull of, look at me, I don't have a family, I'm here, like all this stuff can come into play, but I battle. So staying in the gym keeps my mindset, and then taking time in the day. So I love watching sports. So everybody's like, well, how do you find time? And which my time, if I can sit on the couch and nobody say a word to me, and I can watch a Laker game or a Dolphin game, like those are my teams, or watch a good movie like a Batman movie or a Marvel movie, and it's just silence, that's how I recharge. Because I need to be ready at a moment's notice to be on. In the nonprofit world, if you're a fundraiser, you constantly have to be ready, because no matter who walks up to you, if I'm having a bad day and you're a donor and you're trying to engage me and I'm giving you half shoddy answers, and I'm not showing like I care. I look frazzled, and like I'm not even upkept. Are you going to do? I don't represent the food bank that well, and so thus that donation might not come in.
Yeah.
So I've always made sure that one, I don't wear the fanciest clothes, but I always make sure my mom always says, no matter what you wear, it has to be pressed and ironed and creased. So I iron every night. That's my decomposure. From at 9:30 to 10 o'clock, my roommates would tell you the iron work comes out, and I'm watching my shows at the end, and I'm ironing my shirt every night. If I know I'm going to have a lot, then I'll kind of double stack and get all of it. So my whole week, my outfit's already planned. And so, but I always want to be polished because I represent not only the people I work for, but I have a brand myself. And that's one thing I remembered. My mom never told me, but she always said, take care of you. And I remember there was one day I just went to the store real quick, and I had, like, my hair wasn't done. I was like, oh, nobody's going to see me. And my shirt was a little ratty. And this guy that I really wanted to impress, he was a businessman, walks up and shakes my hand and say, hey, how you doing? And I just wilted. I'm like, I'm not prepared for this. So never again, even when I go to the gym, I go work out and I sweat, but I have to be ready at any moment because I'm not only representing the food bank or now the Kronkowski Charitable Foundation, but I represent myself, and people need to see me in my best light at all times.
Sure.
When I go home is when I break down. I have moments where a movie will hit me and I was like, oh my God, this isn't out of that side of a movie, but the emotion builds up, but I find my outlet. And so that's how I'm able to, you see me everywhere, and I want to highlight the work that people are doing, not so much me, oh, there's Louie again. Now, when you see me picture my truck, that's all about me. That's me, because that's a blessing.
Sure.
That truck is a blessing. It's the hard work, the labor.
It's well deserved.
The word I've gotten here. And so that was my gift to myself, getting the new position, and my other one got stolen. And so it was a gift to myself, and my roommate was able to help me, find it, lock it in, and help me make sure I got it. So I'm always grateful to everybody that does something for me, but it's hard for me to ask.
Yeah.
I can't ask for time out for myself. I can't, those are the things. But I find my moments is when I'm happy is watching a game, like all the free agency stuff. Like I sat this morning for an hour from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock because I had a later meeting this morning, watching ESPN to see who did what and what's going on, and excited what could happen. And that's when I get recharged. And in church, not every day, my pastor will attest, but I try to get in there because you have to go back to something that, the Air Force, they had what they call rebluing, something that reminds you why you joined, and it gets you refocused. I do that when I go to church. I remember that there is the Bible. There is people to tell you got to look out for everybody else. And so this is what I live to help other people and just to be happy doing it. And if people can see that and it changes them a little bit, or maybe I will give $1.
Yeah.
Like if somebody could every day of the week just say $5 and donate $20 at the end of every month, that builds up for a nonprofit that can do something with that. Like the food bank, $5 is 50 pounds of food. That's incredible. That's half a shopping cart, pretty much. And so, but every nonprofit needs something. And if my whole mission now, being with this foundation, is highlighting everybody I can be involved with, and just somebody will see that and says, I need to connect with that. And I'm having people all over start messaging me because they're seeing a lot of the stuff happening, and it's incredible. They're like, okay, I'll like it. Well, no, you look fake. You only have 5 friends. You ain't real. And so, but everything I do is to, at the end of the day, when I take that last breath, to say, I did everything I could. Everything I could.
I'll tell you what, man, you're inspiring. You're very inspiring. I like looking at your stuff on social media because it makes me happy, and talking about going to church, me and my wife slowly have not been going. Right. We're Catholic, so it's kind of like, okay, we'll go on Easter and Christmas,
And you're good for a while.
We're good for a while. But in all honesty, it's so funny because when we do go to church, I leave there and I feel completely different.
Yes.
I feel peaceful. I feel calm. And it's funny because even though we miss a lot of church, the Catholic Church is been the same for probably thousands of years.
Yeah.
So it's funny because I'll go to church now and I'm like, I remember this one as a kid.
You remember the song? You remember the words?
I remember it all. And so it really does bring peace to you, and I think when people are struggling to find some sort of peace, they should give that an opportunity, because it really does make you feel like there's something bigger than you. And whether it's God whether it's your church community,
Right.
it's bigger than you.
Exactly.
And it really starts to put you in a perspective, your life in a perspective. This is kind of a terrible thing to say, but I enjoy negative attention. I at times I can be very. I think what kind of keeps me when I'm in my alone time, I get sad, I get bummed out. I think we talked about my brother Eddie before.
Yeah.
Losing Eddie, and I told my wife the other day. You hear about so many people struggling with mental health. You hear about people having problems coping with life and things like that. I told her, I said, I cry pretty regular.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about my brother, or I'm thinking about things in the past, or even friends in the past, or relationships that had ended, and being bummed out because I don't go see my parents as often
Right.
as I should. I said, I'll cry. And there's times where I get blue, but I don't stay there.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a benefit, and I don't know how I do that, but I don't stay in that negative space. I go there,
Right.
I use it, I get my emotions
Yes,
out, and then it's almost like, and it's weird because to say that recharges me, it almost kind of recharges
Yeah.
me. Because okay, I've been bummed out today. I spent 4 hours being depressed, and I cried a little bit, and let's go do something.
Right.
Let's go do something fun. One thing that I also try and do outside of that is I always tell people, your interactions with people, it affects other people, right?
Right.
So you can either have a positive interaction or a negative interaction, but they're going to carry that, and then they're going to. It's almost like having a room full of bubbles or
Yes.
something, right? And you've bumped into a bubble that you're pushing into another one,
Right.
And if you pass on that negative interaction or a positive interaction,
transference,
it transfers. And I tell people all the time, I said, you cut somebody off in traffic first thing in the morning, and you honk at them, you flip them off, and you continue. You just upset a person that's
Right.
gonna upset when they get to the office. They're already on 100, right? They're
Or
already irritated.
everybody on the route there.
On the route
everybody
there.
on the route to get to their place is affected now by that one moment. And I've done that too, and I'm like, let it go, because it's not worth it to me. It's not worth it to them. And then the craziness is going to happen after they're going to follow you. They have a gun. But you're right, that that transference of negative. And I enjoy a nice tear, like you said. There's moments, but it's the ability to do it and get out of it, because the emotion is there. If you can release it, and I've cried away many a relationship.
Sure.
But that is I used to tell them, the day I cry for you is the day I'm completely over you.
Yeah.
Because you wash it all out. To me, it's like a cleansing.
Sure.
Your soul is cleansing. You're crying. You get it out of your system. And then you're like, okay, that was that. Now I can move on. And you do something better for yourself, or that makes you happy. And it's those things. Years ago, this is what I do for myself. When I get down and depressed, I will go find somewhere in the hills or go drive out to the lake where there's wind. So for me, years ago, when I was in my deepest depression, and my mom was like, "What is wrong with you? Like, we got to figure this out." So it was an October evening, and we walked up Top of Wine, and before they had all the development, and there was this big cornfields out there. So we sat on the edge of a cornfield, and like everything moves. It was a movie. In my mind, it's still like a movie. It's dark. The full moon was out, like the harvest moon or whatever, in October, and so everything is moving with the wind. And it was just the cold front was blowing in. And I remember sitting there and just closing my eyes and feeling this breeze on my face. And as she's talking to me, her words are sinking in. Like, Mijo, you're bound to be more. This is just, today's today, tomorrow's another day. You can't let this continue on. You had to find your way out. Because I couldn't even want to be at home. I just needed to get away. Like, I was trying to get away from everything, but didn't know what I wanted to run to or what I needed in my life. And so, between the Christianity and her talking about God to me and saying, you're meant for more. You can't give up. And before I joined the military, not a lot of people know, but I actually tried to commit suicide. I sat on the train track at a friend's party in Universal City, right outside the gates of Randolph, gotten drunk stupidly, and I already graduated, and I sat there, and I was just like, this is it. I'm done. I'm spent. I don't know what's going on with my life. I'm struggling with everything in my head. So I sat out there drunk, and if these dogs next door didn't bark, nobody would realize that I had snuck out, jumped over the fence. So my friends drove me back over, and they're like, you can't do this. We need you here. And that's the first time I felt wanted. My family loved me, but I needed more than that. At that moment, I don't know if you know, but I'm gay.
Yeah.
And so some people do, some people don't. And I that's not my first thing. That's not the first thing I want people to know. But I was struggling with all that during that time. I think my mom knew. She was trying to be very gentle with me. And so, but those are the memories that I have. So whenever I get in that space and I doubt myself and I need to remember who I am, and what I stand for, I will take a drive out and in the wind, because the wind is movement. The wind is you moving forward. So like if you're running somewhere forward, you feel the breeze on your face. So even if I'm standing still and the wind's moving past me, I'm still in a forward motion. And so that is my generation. So when I was in Alaska, I would climb up Hilltop Mountain and just stand there overlooking the Pacific Ocean, looking towards Texas from Alaska. And that wind, I would just close my eyes and I would just pray in my head and like, Mom, I'm here. I love you. She was still alive when I was in Alaska. And I just talking to the wind. And in my head, I'm seeing it just being blown around, and those words eventually will come full circle around the globe and touch her in her moment. But that's what I do for myself, is find a spot where it's quiet. Hopefully it's a cold front, because the hot wind is, I'm back in Saudi Arabia, but that wind gives me, like, I'm still moving forward. I'm still doing something because I'm still moving. Even though I'm standing still, that wind blowing past me is very spiritual to me. So those are those little things that I do to get out of that groove and to fight myself. That's why I love the holidays. Could I get to play Santa Claus?
Yeah.
I'm doing something
you
for
look
somebody
sharp.
else. Thank you.
You look sharp in that white
Thank you. The
outfit.
white one, yeah. That was my pimp suit. Like that was my Santa to dress up.
I'd never seen Nina took a picture with you. I had never seen her so happy.
Oh, that's right. That's right. She was volunteering.
We got married, and she wasn't that happy then. I've never seen her that happy, Louie.
Yeah, and because everybody loves Santa.
Sure.
I mean, and so seniors, and I went into me and Monica. We went to go visit some of our donors and people that we care about, and I went to this restaurant. And I just wanted to say hi to the owner and get out. And she's like, "Do you mind? This kid over there is looking at you." So I walked the whole place.
Oh, you were in your suit?
Yeah, I was in my suit. I walked the whole place. And so doing for others really gives me my life. And I just want to be remembered for that. No matter what happens, God forbid something happens on the way home, this carries on and my message goes out. You have to live for somebody other than yourself. You can live for yourself and you can be happy. But in the end, what are you leaving behind, and who are you helping along that way? We can all be successful, earn millions and millions of dollars, and do everything. But how do we get back? That's why I love to see the philanthropy that's been in action after Uvalde, and just in my line of work, to see everybody saying, "Hey, if you give, we'll match you." And so having these other organizations and nonprofits and everybody just coming together to continue to support and uplift everybody, it's a blessing, and it's been an incredible journey this far. I lived a very charmed, blessed life with the struggles that we all have, but it's been incredible. And so that's what I live for, is to make everybody else around me, and just to remember that if it's put in front of me, I have to act on it, because God didn't put somebody in front of me to say, "Louie, this is my struggle." Like if it's, "Louie, my struggle is I need to buy a whole house." Well, that's both of our struggle. Yeah. So we'll move that along. But if it's, I need a pack of cigarettes, if that's your thing, and granted, I don't think you should smoke, but if that's what you need right now, I'm going to walk in and buy you those cigarettes. Yeah. And so that's what life is supposed to be, to uplift others in our time and our moments of need.
Has it been a progression to kind of turn the corner on from when you, and nobody's ever not sad, right? But was there a progression when you got away from that and started becoming this Louie, or was there an event? Because I'll be honest with you, like, we were just living life when Eddie died. And, I didn't think about death. I didn't think about my death. I didn't think about anybody's death. I don't think we had lost anybody. I lost some friends in high school, but before that, it was my grandmother when I was, in junior high or something. Mm-hmm. And outside of that, I hadn't lost anybody in years, And then all of a sudden, Eddie passed. And so that was the thing that said, "Hey, you need to wake up." What are you doing with yourself? What are you doing in general? You talked about legacy earlier. It's like, what are you planning on leaving behind for people? What are people going to remember you for? And it got kind of weird, because there was this immediate, holy crap, I gotta do 1,000 things today. Right.
Time is wasted.
Time is wasting. And it's like I said, for me, a lot of people have been through a lot of things, and I tell people this quite often. By the time I came around, my dad had his stuff together. I tell people he had his stuff together because I came around.
Right.
But, but so I don't feel, I don't feel like I struggled the way my siblings did, the things that they had to endure, or other friends of mine, So for me, it's not having to endure through certain things that other people have. I was almost kind of spoiled, right?
Right.
I wasn't paying attention to anything. I was doing whatever I wanted. I go to work, I go home, and we got in this weird place where, I don't know if Nina ever talked about it, but it's like we never had kids. We were never able to have kids. And so it was kind of like that, along with Eddie passing, was kind of along the same lines, because it was similar to, it was close to the same time, but at the same time, it was kind of like, I'd geared my whole life to, I'm going to be a dad.
Right.
We're working on having kids, so I need to have this career. I need to be able to make as much money as possible. We need to get this house. I had all kinds of stuff in my Amazon basket,
Yes.
And it was kind of like, and then when it was like, well, that's not happening anymore, Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, you're struggling with coming to grips with something that you anticipated happening, and now you go, okay, it's not happening.
Right.
And then, with Eddie passing, then that was like two things that happened where it was kind of like, my mother-in-law passed away. I remember my father-in-law saying, that's not how I planned it.
Right.
I was supposed to go first. I had her set up to be able to live life without me. This isn't how it was supposed to happen. And so I think about that whenever we had our baby issues, whenever we had Eddie pass away. It was like, that's not how I planned things.
Right.
And it's a kick in the teeth when you have to think about it. You go, oh, God's in control. I'm not in control.
Exactly.
And so slowly it's like, well, what do I want to do? And this podcast came from that. Trying to rebuild. Not that there was anything torn down from it, but like our friendships with our friends were minimized, because it gets to the point where everybody has kids around you, and you're trying to have kids.
Right.
And then after a while, it's kind of like, well, hey, come to our kid's birthday party. Well, yeah, I want to go to your kid's birthday party. We're friends.
Yeah.
And then you get there and you're like, man, I can't be here. We're struggling to have kids. And
that
it's
starts
just
to affect you. Yeah.
So it starts to really separate you. So, and not like a noticeable separation,
Right.
but all of a sudden you're not invited. You don't get invited anymore, or people don't remember you for certain
You're
things.
seeing it on Facebook, like, hey, that was this weekend,
Yeah,
and where's my invite?
Where was that? So slowly, I find myself. It's funny because I was telling somebody the other day, a friend of mine. I said, I'm in this weird place right now. It's weird because I'm 45. Everything that I had planned didn't happen.
Right.
And I'm in this weird place now where everything I planned isn't going to happen. And so it's like, it's almost like you have this, you can do whatever you want, and not in a, hey, go crazy kind of way, but it's like all these things you had planned for, you don't necessarily have to do them anymore because those responsibilities that you anticipated aren't coming.
Right.
So you're kind of wide open, but at the same time lost.
Yes.
It's like, well, I had scripted this whole thing out, and now it's like, well, I don't need the script. But you're kind of lost in the sense where it's like, well, what do I do from here now?
Right.
So I'd imagine there was a time for you, because I feel like you're well advanced compared to me, because I'm in this infancy of like, man, what do I do with myself?
Yeah.
What do I do with myself to where I can enjoy it? I can be happy and at the same time make a positive impact on people, and it's like I feel like that's where I'm at, and I feel like you're way past that because
I think you're there. You're giving people a platform. You're giving people a voice. You're giving people something that can say their messaging and to have, like you mentioned, Kinetic Kids on it. And I would invite you to do random nonprofits and say, what's your story?
Yeah.
What do you need people to know about you? Stuff like that. So I think you're there. For me, I would say it was a little selfish. I still cared about people, but in the military, Louie, it was all about Louie. I leading
Louie, look who you're talking to. I gave you stickers with my face on it.
And so it was all about me, but I still cared about the troops, taking care of the troops. And when I got out the military and retired and finally got on with the food bank, I was like, I'm just going to give them a couple of months. The base will hire me back. I'm going to go back and do my job, and I'm going to send people to deploy. That was my job. I was a unit deployment manager, but I took care of the people that were deploying, so they would have their checklist. If my boss, if he ever listened to this, he'll probably be mad. So they had a checklist of what they needed. But when I would take my troops in to go and shopping and into to get all their supplies, like, what do you want? It's not what you need. It's what do you want?
Yeah.
And so, well, I would like to have this knife, or I would like this flashlight, or can I have those boots instead of these boots? And I know this is what, as long as they had the requirement, I was okay giving them something extra, because that shows I care about you.
Sure.
I'm sending you over there. I don't have to go because I'm here, but I'm sending you across the pond to go fight for our country and to go defend whatever and do all this. You should at least have something you want.
Yeah.
And I think that is my turning point when it became Louie in charge to how does Louie help? And my commander at the time took me out and said, of my comfort zone, and said, you're running this military airport down here at the Kelly passenger terminal. They brought some other leadership in and said, you know what, it's time for you to move out. And I was scraping, like, I redesigned that. Like, they gave us money to put new paint on the walls and the tile and the plants, like, and it still looks like that to this day, which is probably because I left a legacy. Like, Louie would have wanted this way. So I went to my friend, one of my ex-troops retirement, and he's like, remember this? And you remember this? We kept it, like, look. And I was like, holy cow, my desires still permeated through the building to where they kept the same decor, the colors, and everything was taken care of. And so, but leaving that and going into unit deployment, I had to make sure my troops had everything they needed, their shots, their medical records, their ammunition, their weapons, all that to get to their forward deployment, so that way they're ready for success. So that was slowly the turn of change. And then get to the food bank. I was like, yeah, I'll leave a couple of months. They'll hire me back. But they were going through the freeze hire, so nobody was getting hired. And
it was like around 08 or something?
2011.
11? Okay.
2011. And so I remember going to lunch one day, and I was so done. And I was like, you know what? I can't do the food bank no more, like, because it was nonstop. And I was like, I thought it was supposed to be easy at the retirement. And stupid me thinking, Louie, you could really slow down, and trying to slow down. So I went to lunch, and Monica was on my Facebook already, and her sister was my boss. So I go to lunch. I went to Long John Silver's off General McMullen, Commerce over there in Incarnate Word. No, not Incarnate Word. I don't know. No, not Trinity. Our Lady of the Lake. Our Lady of the Lake.
Yes.
Sorry. So I went to lunch, and I got on my social media, and I put, sometimes you have to realize when to jump a sinking ship. And I hit post. And that was me. I'm sinking at this place. Get out of there. Go find something else to do. You can go find another job. And Monica seen it. She didn't say anything. She called my boss, her sister.
Screenshotted it, I guarantee.
And she told her sister. So I'm sitting there finishing my lunch and said, I'm going home. I turned everything off. I had no plans of going back. Her sister calls me and says, where you at? So I'm at lunch. She goes, are you quitting? And I was like, no, I don't know if you ever met Erica, or you know Erica?
No. I've seen her on the post.
And she's like, are you quitting? I said, no. And she goes, what is this about a sinking ship? Monica told me she saw it on your Facebook. And I was like, oh my God. So I'm looking at the phone, and I'm like, no.
Hey, man, those are Valley girls, man.
They are. They were. And so I said, no, I'm coming back. And I was like, damn. So I go back to work, and she says, come and see me when you get back. So I was like, all right, I'm going to hear it. I said, you know what? I'm 40-year-old man. What is this woman going to tell me?
Yeah.
And she's like, you're working, but you don't know what you're working for. In the military, you always knew what the outcomes were. What you did, you know what the results were supposed to be. At the food bank, I'm just making food move out the building, and I didn't connect. And she said, you need to go and find out where the food goes to and see how they're handling that. So there was this couple that was running a pantry on Saturdays, and that was a Thursday. So Friday came, they're like, hey, you need to come and visit us. We want you to see what we do, and we want to show you everything that we're doing for the community. So I said, all right. I said, who talked to you? Did somebody tell you to ask me to come over? Like, no, we've been wanting you. You're new here. We wanted you to come and see us. So I get up Saturday morning, and I go, and they're waiting for me, and there's this long line around the building to get in. And so, I've been an inspector for the military, so of course you hide everything. You want to, look over here, because over here is dirty. Mm-hmm. And so they showed me everything. I said, you know what? The true test is the people in your line. So I'm going to go talk to them. They're like, go ahead. And I said, all right. You want to get bold with me? So I talked to everybody. There was about at least 50 people I talked to in line, all of them raving about how they were treated with respect and dignity and always had the stuff they needed. And it dawned on me, and I was like, now it was clicking. Everything I fought to do in that building at the food bank, arguing sometimes with the warehouse guys, hey, go pull this order. I need this today. This just came in. I know it's late. I need you to do this. Like, all that fighting was so people could eat. And then I tied it into, Louie, this was your family years ago. You're that little boy in line that needs this pantry for food. Now I have the ability to make sure that food gets there. And if an order's late or, hey, something else came in extra, go send that over there. So I went back through the line and talked to everybody. And remember, I was going to try to go back on base to be hired. And there was a GS-11 that told me I lost everything. They furloughed me. I'm about to lose my house. I have 2 kids. I don't know how I'm going to make it. This is the only food I'm able to afford. I'm trying to figure out where I'm coming from. And I was like, that could have been me. There's no security in being hired on the base. It's no different than being hired anywhere else. But I always had a job because I wore a uniform. I was good in uniform. As a civilian, I could be let go. And that was the aha moment that I had to fight for these people because these are my people. This is my people that I grew up with. Not really, but these are the people that resembled me as in my family. And so there was one guy that I said, what do you need? So everybody's giving me, we need more meat. We need this and this. He goes, for Thanksgiving, Louie, I want a turkey. He goes, 5 years, I haven't had a turkey because I'm by myself. And so they give the turkeys to the families. And, and he goes, and I appreciate that, but I just want a turkey for Thanksgiving. So for Thanksgiving, I went to H-E-B and bought a turkey. Went to that distribution the day before or the week before Thanksgiving, held it in my truck. When he went through the line, I said, I'm taking you home. You ain't got to walk home with your food. So I loaded him into the truck, drove him home, and the last thing I gave him was, here's your turkey. And he just bawled. That was, this is what I do. This is why I need to be there. And so I started volunteering every Saturday at that same pantry. They were handing out food to 400 to 600 people every Saturday. Every Saturday. So I would get up, work my job Monday through Friday, and then as a volunteer go. I was still a food bank. So if I saw something inappropriate, like, no, you can't do that. You can't take that. Like, no, that looks bad. Throw that away. I could still manage that. But I was just Louie. I was just a volunteer for them. But they appreciated me coming out of pocket. And my boss used to say, don't do that. You're going to burn yourself out. I will tell you when I burn out.
Yeah.
And I will always give. And I work Saturdays when I didn't have to. And that's why I do what I do, because that was my aha moment. And when I left there, the first meeting, after meeting everybody, I always tell this story. I'm at my big white truck with the Batman logo on the back, and I'm getting ready to race. I'm so excited and happy. And I start driving out, waving at everybody like it was like a little parade. And I hear, oh, stop. Everybody's running at me. And I was like, oh, my God, what? And in front of the truck, I see this little flag that goes by the hood. And it was a guy in a wheelchair. His name was Simon. Simon says, what's the big rush? Like, where you headed off to, big guy? And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even see you. And so behind him was this little lady that was in a cart attached to it, and that was his wife. And so she had, I think, dementia. And so he was wheelchair bound, and he drove around. We became best friends. He would check in with me at least once a month. And so when the time came to leave the distribution and go to development and fundraising, I was going to make my decision, and I said, yeah, I'm going to leave and go to that side. And he happened to call me that morning. And he's like, Louie, what are you doing? I said, where have you been, Simon? He goes, I was in the hospital. I had a heart attack. We got hit by a car. The wife got injured. And he goes, I finally got to my phone, and you're the first person I want to talk to. And I said, oh, my God, who's going to take care of Simon if I go do fundraising and not here? Well, my boss and the new boss that took over, like, let God allow the next person to take over. They still haven't found the right one, but they'll keep going. If you're listening, sorry. And that's my thing. I have to be, and I lost friends along the way.
Sure.
They're like, hey, come over, let's go drinking tonight. Nope, sorry, I'm getting up early to go volunteer in the morning. You want to join me? Come and join me. But I have people actually have physical reactions and just get bitter and hateful because I decided it's not worth driving across town to go watch a movie that's probably 10 years old and have beers with you, then drive home to get up early to go volunteer. It was meant more to me to help those people and to volunteer than to sit with you and watch a movie that I've already seen at your house. You didn't want to come to my house, but it's always come to you on this side of town. Like, it was one of those things. So I've been able, and it hurt, and I get a little bitter. I say, you know what? Did I really need them? Were they my friend for the right reason? And to this day, we still can't make amends. Yeah. Because they don't see what I saw in the value of giving to others, where they're business people. It's about them. And that's fine. I had to put myself around people that think like me, that want the world to be a better place, that don't see black, white, they don't see male, female, they see people in need and will give. That's where I want to be. And those are the people I associate with now.
Thanks for listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.